When it comes to luxury electric vehicles, Mercedes-Benz has been carving out a name for themselves with their electric sub-brand known as Mercedes EQ. The lineup started with the EQS flagship luxury sedan about 3 years ago, and then slowly Mercedes has been expanding the name to also include vehicles like the EQB and of course the EQE. Now, to confuse people further, Mercedes is actually splitting off the EQE and EQS name into a sedan and an SUV, and as you can see this week, we are testing out the latest version of the EQE SUV, known as the EQE 350 4Matic. And what that essentially means is we have dual electric motors in the front and the rear, up to 253 miles of range, and unlike the EQE 500 that we tested a few months ago, this model here has a starting price of around $12,000 less versus the EQE 500. So if you guys are looking for a luxury electric SUV that's a lot different versus the Tesla that your neighbor drives, how does the latest version of the EQE 350 4Matic stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So ordinarily, this is where I would pop the hood and show you guys what's powering the vehicle or show you guys the front storage. However, if you've been following Mercedes EQ products, you'll know that the EQS and the EQE do not technically allow the consumer to open up the hood because that's where the HEPA air filtration lives, and you have to really be a Mercedes-Benz technician to actually access the hood. But before we start talking about the exterior styling, let me go ahead and briefly talk about the powertrain differences with this model. Now, this is the EQE 350, which is known as the base powertrain in the EQE SUV family. You can take your pick between either the EQE 350 Plus or this EQE 350 4Matic. All of them are utilizing a 90.6 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack, with the power being reduced from the 500 that I tested a few months ago to 288 horsepower. Now, the rear-wheel drive version offers around 417 pound-feet of torque. When you guys get all-wheel drive, it ramps up the torque figure to 564. That's actually matching the torque figure of this car's main rival, the BMW iX xDrive 50, even though that has significantly less this has significantly less horsepower versus the BMW. It all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission. And like I said earlier, up to 253 miles of range on this model. It's actually the lowest range version of the EQE family, aside from the AMG version, which offers 235 miles. The 350 Plus offers 279 miles, while the 500 actually offers 269 miles. So that's interesting. Mercedes-Benz says this model should get to 60 in around 6.2 seconds. We'll test it out with our equipment and see what we actually get. It has a top speed of around 130 miles an hour. And if you guys plan to tow with this vehicle, it'll tow a maximum of 5,000 pounds, which is actually, I'm sorry, 3,500 pounds, which is actually a little bit below average. If you guys are looking at a GLE SUV, the gas version, that'll actually do up to 7,700 pounds. So this is about half the towing capacity. As this car sits, it weighs in at a little over 5,600 pounds, which is about 300 pounds heavier versus the rear-wheel drive version of this car. But let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling of this vehicle, because as you guys know, I haven't really been a fan of the EQ family of styling. Mercedes really does with this kind of egg profile, a jelly bean shape, all in the name of aerodynamics. You can see this particular model that I'm showing you here is painted in this really interesting shade of twilight blue metallic. It's actually a free color. It kind of has a little hints of gray and blue in the color. You can see my tester also has the digital full matrix LED headlight design where it projects symbols and patterns and whatnot onto the road. The headlights you can see include an LED daytime running light and turn signal, LED low and high beams. No fog lights on this vehicle, but typical EVs, there's a light bar that connects the two headlights together. You have the Mercedes EQ grille with the actual stars in the grille. It actually doesn't have any openings because it's an EV, you don't really need it. You have the two pointed or three-pointed star logos, the big one, of course, front and center. You have some functional openings here with some active grille shutters. This model here has the AMG body styling package, so it has a more aggressive front fascia. But overall, compared to the sedan, I think this car definitely has some decently attractive, but also some unattractive angles. This car actually is about an inch narrower versus the sedan version of this car, but it is around 6 inches taller and around 5.5 inches shorter in the overall length. At 191.5 inches long, this is about 3 inches shorter than the GLE class SUV, the gas equivalent of this car. So it's actually a little bit on the smaller side compared to competitors like the iX, the Audi Q8 e-tron, and of course the Cadillac Lyriq. Its wheelbase is around 119.5 inches long. Now, my tester has the conventional steel spring suspension. It does have the active rear wheel steering that allows the rear wheels to turn up to 10 degrees. You can, for about $2,000 bucks, get an adaptive air suspension, which is optional, that'll raise and lower the car. My tester has these really attractive looking 21-inch wheels wrapped in a 265 by 40 R21-inch tire. This is actually a Bridgestone Blizzak winter tire because we are in the middle of winter here in PA. Typically this setup would come with a summer performance tire. The brakes are also massive, front and rear. Necessary, of course, for something that's this heavy. But overall, most EVs have some really unattractive wheels. I'm really happy to see the Mercedes puts a decent looking wheel on their electric vehicles. Now, my tester also has these side running boards, which do get annoyingly in the way when you're stepping in and out of the vehicle. I don't really think it needs running boards. It's a very low car. And then over here, you can see there's a little mail slot. This is where you kind of can open this, and this is where you fill up the washer fluid, because again, the hood, technically you can't open it as a consumer. There is a panel that you need tools to kind of disassemble underneath the dash to open up the hood. But you can see the mirrors are power folding, cameras, you have integrated turn signals, a lot of chrome along the window trim and on the door panel or door handles, which these are the electronic ones that pop in and out. There is a panoramic glass roof that actually opens. This is standard even on the base premium trim. This is the exclusive that I'm showing you, which is a one notch up for about 2,000 bucks extra. And really, this is one of the few electric vehicles that actually has an opening pano roof. So that's a reason to go for the EQE SUV. Now, moving around the rear, this is probably the more unattractive angle for me. It's got that basically blob egg-like shape to it, and that contributes to a 0.26 coefficient of drag, one of the more slipperier coefficient of drags, of course, for an SUV. Moving around the rear, you can see the taillights have that same kind of full-length design where you have an LED turn signal, LED reverse light, LED brake lights, of course. There's an EQE 350 badge, and then 4Matic basically means it has all-wheel drive with electric motors front and rear. Obviously, no visible exhaust tips. The AMG body styling package gives you a more aggressive rear diffuser, but no rear spoiler at the back. I'm actually surprised no spoiler at the back. Maybe the AMG version has that. I haven't had a chance to actually drive or see one in person. Over here on the passenger rear quarter panel, this is the charge port door. This vehicle will accept up to 170 kilowatts of max DC fast charging. It has an onboard charger of 9.5 kilowatts, which means on a level 2 at my home, it takes around 10.5 hours to charge this thing from empty to full. On a level 3, a fast charger, you can go from basically 10 to 80% in about 32 minutes. You can see it still uses the old J1772 plug with the CCS combo. Mercedes, I believe, will be switching to the NAC plug, which is what most manufacturers are doing. But you can see the charge port door is not power or anything like that. It's very simple. And now opening up the cargo area, you can see, push that up to open up the cargo area. And this is where the EQE SUV is obviously better than the sedan, but it's not going to be as good as the GLE class. You got around 18.5 cubic feet of storage space back here. It's a well-finished storage area. You can see it's got really nice carpet. It's got these metal kick plates, scuff plates, which are nice. Underneath here, there's actually a pretty deep amount of storage, which is great, which also expands over there. No spare tire, instead you just have to have a fix-a-flat kit. There's the mobile charger that the car comes with. If you fold down the second row seats, there's no third row in this model. The EQS SUV offers a third row that'll expand the cargo capacity to just under 59 cubic feet of space. So it's, again, it's practical and it's not bad. But if you guys need more space, buy the gas equivalent version known as the GLE class. That has roughly 20 more cubic feet of total space versus this car. So the exterior of the EQE SUV definitely isn't the most attractive part of this vehicle. Really, it's the interior, and that's where Mercedes typically does a very good job here. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the intelligent access key that all EQE models come with. It includes, again, a keyless access with intelligent entry and such. You can see there's a usual lock, unlock, power liftgate, and panic function. Also, the car makes these really interesting spaceship noises when you lock and unlock the car, which again adds to the whole drama of the vehicle. As I approach the car with the key fob on me, you can see the door handles are supposed to pop out, but I didn't actually walk away far enough. So you can either just tap the door like that, that'll pop the door handles out and also will unlock the mirrors for you. When you want to open them, they're the traditional style. You actually have to pull it. It's a physical connection, not a digital latch like some competitors. Now you can see my tester has a really nice color combination here, which includes like the twilight blue on the outside with this kind of light gray with the brown two-tone look. This is the upgraded real leather material. These seats themselves are heated and ventilated. You can get massaging seats. However, my tester doesn't have that option for the massaging seats, which would be nice. I love how the floor mats here, as you can see, they kind of match the top portion of the dash and the top portion of the door panel. You can see the door panel has some real stitching and leather along the actual door panel, which is nice. Leather over here, aluminum trim for the door handle, and of course the window controls, they have a nice high quality feel. Your seat controls are here. I believe the seats adjust in like 18 different ways. Again, you have 3-person memory on the driver and on the passenger side as well, which is nice. You have the Burmester premium sound system. And then down here, you can see it is a hard touch plastic material. There's a Mercedes-Benz lit up skid plate or kick plate over there. And then you can see my tester also has these running boards, which I find annoying. They get in the way. This car is not needed, or it doesn't need the running boards because it doesn't have that high of a ground clearance. But overall, the interior makes a great first impression. Now, stepping inside, you can see the step-in height is nice and easy. Definitely better versus the sedan version of this car. And as I shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. You cannot get soft closed doors on this vehicle, which you can get on some of the competitors. Now, you heard it has that little futuristic chime as I shut the door and then start the vehicle up. The button to fire it up, the powertrain is right here. Put your foot on the brake, and again, that basically allows the car to come to life. It will basically just say ready in the instrument panel because, again, no actual engine in this car. And then all EQEs are going to come standard with the 12.3-inch display here, which you can get it to be like a 3D display. And then you have a 12.8-inch display here, part of their MBUX system, which includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If you guys wait until later in 2024, Mercedes will eventually offer their Hyperscreen on this model. The Hyperscreen is currently standard on the AMG version of this car, where you'll basically have 3 screens. They'll add a passenger screen here, then you'll have a 17.7-inch display here with one continuous 56-inch piece of curved glass, which looks very futuristic. I don't particularly think it's necessary. This is, again, still very, very nice. Now, in terms of the materials, you can see that leather stitching carries over onto the dash, although it does create kind of a high dash. I love this magnolia wood with the 3-pointed star logos kind of embedded into the wood. It's a matte finish wood. It looks fantastic. It looks real. It is real, of course. The vents, you can see, have that really nice turbine style vent where you can also twist it to open and close it. It has that satisfying click. The steering wheel, as you can see, has a power tilt telescoping function. Nice leather on the wheel. Surprised the AMG line doesn't include a flat bottom design steering wheel, but you can see there are paddles to control the regen braking, allowing you to go from normal to no recuperation to strong recuperation. Touch sensitive controls here to control that and to control that. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's relatively easy to use. You can see here your gear selector is located on the stock where you'd expect the wiper to controls to be. If I put the vehicle into reverse, there's your backup camera. It includes a 360 camera along with trajectory and parking sensors and whatnot. Automatic braking quality and resolution is fantastic. Mercedes also gives you the ability to kind of scan around the vehicle, which is great. This is going to be great for those of you who live in the city. You need to parallel park this vehicle and whatnot. And again, it's all accessed via the touchscreen over here. Now you can see my phone is connected via the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This works very nicely. It looks great. If you want to go back to the native system here, there's your native embedded GPS, which is fine. You can see the climate function here allows you to control your dual zone climate. There's also the option of a 4-zone climate. My tester doesn't have that. There's also an air quality function here. That's part of the Energizer Comfort Air Plus package. There's a big HEPA filtration at the front of the vehicle. That's why you can't open up the hood. You can also get this car with the interior perfume, I believe, which my tester, the air fragrance balance package, doesn't have that feature, along with the massaging seats. Would be nice if this car had it, but it does not have that feature. Your drive mode selector is here. You can see there's 5 different modes, including like an off-road setting or sport or comfort. Most of you will probably be in those modes, honestly. And again, all of it is accessed via the screen over here. Going back to this little home screen, this is where you can access all your different sources and whatnot. Go to like an information page, an off-road page, your radio information, comfort page where you can access the seat kinetics. The ambient lighting in this car is also standard, where you can see there's beautiful ambient lighting that goes across the entire dash, along this portion of the dash, along the door panels, along that part, and the floorboards and whatnot, even in here and such. So I have it set to like ultramarine, but again, you can kind of change the color here to go to like a fresh cyan. You can go to a jungle green color, a Miami rose. Mercedes does some really fantastic ambient lighting, and it looks even better at night. You can see more of that nice leather stitched material along this portion of the dashboard and the console. You have your wireless phone charging pad here, 2 USB-C charging ports, your cup holders and whatnot here. You can also close off this door. I don't like this piano black plastic. It shows a lot of scratches and fingerprints. Open that up, you can see it's got a pretty deep center console storage, which is nice. You also have a lot more storage right here, which is great, although this is technically not covered storage. Push the car icon here, you can kind of access some quick information and functions if you want to change a couple of things here. So that's all very nice that there are some quick buttons. There's also an EQ button to show what your charging percentage is and whatnot. You can also adjust the settings for the charging and the range and the consumption. So all of that is all relatively nice. But again, all touch sensitive controls here. Mercedes doesn't really do very many physical buttons anymore. So this could be overwhelming for some, but it takes some getting used to. Once you do get used to it, it's relatively easy to use. And I think the system also still looks very modern. Auto dimming rearview mirror. Mercedes doesn't do a digital camera rearview mirror. You can see more of the ambient lighting here. This sunroof you can see has a retractable shade, which is nice. Some competitors don't even offer the shade. And you can also open up the roof itself to basically vent, or you can open it up completely, which is nice. This is standard equipment even on the base trim of this car, which is great. So I think that for those of you who are looking for an EV with an opening sunroof, you're gonna find that here. The glove compartment, you can see there's a button here. You push that button, that opens up the glove compartment. It's actually big, it's damped, it's lined with felt. It offers a good amount of storage. There's actually plenty of storage in this car. It's just the visibility. You have to get used to this high dash with this thick A-pillar, which isn't great, but once you do, the visibility in this car is fine. I just wish Mercedes offered a digital camera rearview mirror. My tester, of course, has full speed adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, auto lane changes, all that stuff, automatic emergency braking. That's included, of course, with the exclusive trim. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat, because the EQE, being built on a dedicated electric architecture, does have some pretty good backseat space. Now, the legroom, Mercedes says, is around 39 inches. That's among the highest in the segment. These seats, you can see, they do offer the ability to fold down to kind of expand the cargo capacity. It almost creates a completely flat load floor. They do not recline, however, and the seat doesn't actually move forward and back. You can see there's more leather stitching here, leather over here, aluminum trim. The Burmester stereo system also sounds fantastic. However, no manual rear sunshades or power sunshades, which is a little unacceptable at this price point. But getting back here, you can see if you need to use this as a family vehicle, this is where I'd have the seat to drive. Shut the door. You can see there's plenty of foot space. There's a completely flat floor here. You have rear seat air vents, which is nice. However, big blank panel here. This is where you can add 4-zone climate control along with heated rear seats, which my tester doesn't have, annoyingly. Open this up, you can see you have 2 USB-C charging ports. You have 2 storage cubbies. And then if you want to fold this down, there's an armrest that also gives you more cup holders, or I guess your cup holders, which are here, along with additional storage in the door panel. So overall, our overall headroom, as you can see with the panel roof, as I get back here, I can lay back. My head doesn't get close to the ceiling, but if you're over 6 feet tall, this is where Mercedes could have done a little bit of a higher roof for this vehicle. But overall, as you can see, the back seat space is among the better in the segment. It just doesn't offer like a third row. You need to go for the EQS SUV if you want that feature. So here we are back driving the 2024 Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. I know that name is a crazy, confusing name, and I really think that Mercedes should have just made this car the electric GLE and just used the GLE name and body. But overall, the last time we drove this car was about almost 4 months ago in September, when I had the EQE 500, which used to mean it had a V8 engine when you saw a 500 badge on Mercedes. Clearly, that's not the case anymore. Basically, this car has detuned electric motors, the same size battery pack at 90.6 kilowatt hours, but now we have about 288 horsepower, 564 pound-feet of torque. That's compared to the 402 horsepower and like 616 or 17 pound-feet of torque that you had in the EQE 500. Basically, that means Mercedes says this car should get to 60 in about 6.2 seconds. I got like 4.1 in the 500, so I suspect that's a conservative number that Mercedes says. So let's go ahead and see what we can get here. We have it at almost 100% charge, 98% charge, and then we'll just go ahead and brake torque it. Oof. Definitely don't feel as quick at the top end compared to the 500, but we just got 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds, so about a little over a half a second faster than what Mercedes claims, and that time should be sufficient for most people. I mean, if you're going to compare it to some of the other luxury branded competitors, that is kind of pretty much on par with the last Audi e-tron Q8 or Q8 e-tron that I tested, the refreshed model. Remember, the Audi I kind of said was a little bit underpowered. This model, that car took around 5.5 seconds. This is basically right on top of that Audi. And, you know, to be honest, for most people, you're going to find that power or that performance to be sufficient. But again, if you want more power, the 500 will gladly suffice. And then there's also the AMG version, which I haven't had a chance to drive. That is new for 2024. That has like 677 horsepower when you have it in the boost function. But let's go ahead and try it here without brake torquing at this time. We're just going to floor it. This is slightly more uphill. It feels quick off the line, like there's no lag, but then at the top end, you start to feel, okay, it's not quite as fast. 6 seconds there. That's, again, without brake torquing it, with with it going slightly more uphill. And that performance is fine. I mean, EVs are quickly becoming universal for being just quick. I mean, you have that instantaneous torque. It has a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, so there's no gear changes, and it just kind of pushes you back in the seat. The suspension is softer on this car, even though we've got the AMG, you know, line body styling and whatnot. So you can kind of feel the rear end squat, the front lifts up. And then I have it on the Vivid Flux sound profile, so you can hear it's kind of creating that fake sound. It almost sounds very futuristic, almost like a spaceship. I really like that sound. There's also Vivid Flux, or I'm sorry, there's like Roaring Pulse, which is new, and then there's like Silver Waves, but this is definitely my favorite sound profile, and again, it just adds to the drama. You can turn that off if you guys don't like that at all. Mercedes also does a pretty decent regen braking system where you have 3 different levels. There's strong, normal, and then light or low no recuperation, and then there's also like an intelligent recuperation. Strong kind of gives you their version of a one-pedal drive feature, which again, it's fine, although Mercedes does this thing where the brake pedal still moves when you have the regen on, and it kind of moves to the position where the car assumes the brake pedal would be pressed if you actually were hitting the brake pedal with your phantom foot. That's kind of what it feels like, because the brake pedal moves when you actually switch your foot from the accelerator to the brake, which is just a strange sensation. But overall, this car still drives very nice. I never really had a problem with the way Mercedes EVs drove. They always drove very nicely because of how stiff the structure feels. I like the tuning of the throttle and the brake, of course, and the ride quality. But overall, there is something about this car that just feels a little bit not as premium as other Mercedes SUVs, and you kind of notice that when you drive their gas-powered cars compared to the EVs. And this car does have the 10-degree rear wheel steering, and it definitely makes this vehicle feel a lot smaller than it is. I mean, it's already a small car at like 191 inches, or it's like a mid-size car. Not as big, obviously, as the EQS SUV, which is like a good foot longer than this. But that 4-wheel steering makes this car feel even more nimble. It's a nice option for those of you who live in like a crowded city environment. You want to have the ability to kind of parallel park this thing in tight spots pretty easily. So I highly recommend that touch. It's like an extra $1,800, I believe, for the 4-wheel steering, but it's nice to have. It's definitely a nice feature to have. Let's go ahead and just try it here really quick. I want to see what we can get. Very nice. 5.7 there. So again, very consistent performance. 5.6 was the quickest that I got. And for most people, you know, obviously you can go faster with the 500 or AMG, which the quickest model is the AMG. Mercedes says that'll do it in 3.4 seconds. Haven't had a chance to drive that yet, but I suspect it'll probably be in the low, maybe 3 seconds dead, which is just stupid fast. You don't really need to go any faster than that. But overall, in terms of just driving the EQE SUV, I mean, this car is very confusing in the fact that there are 2 EQEs. There's the sedan and there's the SUV. I've had a chance to drive both the sedan and the SUV. They drive pretty similar. I mean, this car is taller versus the sedan. It's a little bit shorter. It's a little bit narrower. The drag coefficient is 0.26, so it's not quite as slippery going through the wind as the sedan counterpart that's expected. This is an SUV. But in terms of this feeling like an SUV, I mean, it doesn't really feel like an SUV to me. It feels more like a minivan. I mean, I do sit up a little bit higher. You have this big, you know, long dashboard to where the visibility in these cars isn't wonderful. You have massively thick A-pillars here. The view out of the back, though, is good. That's because it doesn't have those kind of swoopy coupe-like roof lines that you get in some competitors, but you can see with that 4-wheel steering, it just kind of makes this thing feel so much smaller. It turns on a dime. But yeah, the visibility is something that you really have to get used to with this car, and I really think it's a sour point with Mercedes' EV. I'm just not entirely sure the company quite understands what people are looking for, I mean, in EV. And yes, as an electric vehicle, this thing certainly has average charging speed at 170 kilowatts, expected to take about 30 minutes on a level 3 fast charger. In terms of acceleration, they offer everything from like a mildly quick car to a stupidly quick car. And then in terms of the range, let's go ahead and talk about that. This model here is rated at the least amount of range in the EQE lineup, or at least excluding the AMG, that's rated at 234. This is rated at 253 miles. Now that's comparing to the 269 that you get in the EQE 500. The EQE 350 Plus gets the most at 279 miles. I think that range figure is a little disappointing. Everyone else is kind of over the 300-mile mark, including the BMW iX, the Teslas, of course. The Audi e-tron is also approaching the 300 mile mark. So that's a little disappointing. When I tested the EQE 500, that gave me around 260-ish miles on a full charge. That's with the temperatures in better, actual conditions where I was in September. It was warmer. This time I'm testing the car basically in winter. It's been, a solid 35 to 38 degrees in the PA area where I've been driving it. And this car's range has only been around 230 miles. That's what I've been getting in the real world. That's not wonderful, but you kind of expect that with an EVs. They always tend to drop the range when in real world testing when it's cold. EVs just don't like the cold. This car does have a heat pump to help with, again, keeping the cabin warm. When I turn the heater on, it actually drops the range by about 20 miles. Without the heater on, the trip computer was showing around 250 miles of range on a full charge. Turn on the heater, it drops it around 230, and that's what I was actually getting in my real world testing. So the range computer in this car is actually very accurate, which is nice. I think Mercedes does a good job with the calculations of their trip computer and just the overall real-world performance. But, compared to the EQS, which has a much bigger battery pack, I think the range figures on the EQE aren't wonderful. It's kind of the same thing with the EQB. Also, the range in that model is like 243. So Mercedes has some work to do, and that's kind of where, their EVs right now, they are full of a lot of amazing tech. They drive nicely, but it makes me wonder, what is the next, generation of their EVs going to be like? Everything is going electric, but at the same time, the demand for EVs isn't quite as strong as what some of the brands predicted. Even the Mercedes-Benz, I believe, CEO said that selling EVs are tough. The EV market is a tough market. Everybody really wants a Tesla. Not everybody wants these other brands. And I think that once Mercedes figures out what buyers are looking for in a Mercedes EV, I think they're probably going to do away from these silly EQ names. They should just take their iconic names like S-Class, like GLE, for example, like GLS, like E-Class, and just make them fully electric. That's what BMW is going with the route of their EVs, and I think that's actually the better decision. But overall, if you guys are considering an EQE, the 350 4Matic is actually the same price as the 350 Plus, which has rear-wheel drive, single motor, a little bit longer range. And it could be worth a look, but just keep in mind, some of the competitors do offer better real-world or actual range, and they're also a little bit better looking, in my opinion, versus the way this thing looks on the outside. So even though US demand for electric vehicles seem to be hitting a wall because there seems to be more of these being produced versus actual buyers, if you guys are actually in the market for a luxury electric midsize SUV like this, the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV is definitely a solid choice. This EQE 350 4Matic that I'm showing you is a more affordable option versus the EQE 500. As you guys saw, 0 to 60 in the mid 5-second range is going to be plenty fast for most people. Unfortunately, I have been driving this car out in the colder conditions. It's around 37 degrees outside right now. And in my real world testing, I've only been getting around 220 to 230 miles of range, which isn't great, but it is basically on par versus competitors like the Genesis GV70, of course. The Polestar 3 that's upcoming is going to be a big competitor. The BMW iX is going to have more range. The Audi Q8 e-tron is also going to have slightly more range, although when I tested one for real in my actual real world testing, it didn't do quite as good as the EPA numbers suggest. So again, really it's the Teslas. Those are the top selling EVs that do get better range on paper, although in the real world I haven't had a chance to test one in real life to see what I'm actually getting in my testing for the vehicle. In terms of gripes, I still don't love the way this car looks. From the front, it looks okay. From this angle here, I think the car is absolutely hideous. It looks like a jelly bean blob. I think Mercedes seriously needs to reconsider the shape of these vehicles. Yes, I understand they're doing it all in the name of aerodynamics, but when you have beautiful EVs that are coming out like the Polestar 3, for example, that's one of the most attractive new luxury SUVs that I think is coming out, along with the Volvo EX90. I think Mercedes needs to rethink things, because when you buy a vehicle like this, you're not just buying the name brand, you're also buying the styling. And there's nothing about this car that kind of makes me go, oh, I want to turn around and look at this thing as I walk away from it in a parking lot. And that's a big problem, especially when you do get that feeling with the other gas-powered Mercedes vehicles. Now, in terms of the pricing for this car, this is where the EQE also gets pretty expensive. Now, when I tested the EQE 500 a couple months ago, that car was just under $100,000, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. Now, if you guys want an EQE 350, it'll cost you around $77,900. That's for either the 350 Plus or the 350 4Matic. Mercedes actually doesn't charge you more if you guys want all-wheel drive, which is actually kind of a good thing. And compared to the sedan, this is actually the same price as the EQE 350 4Matic sedan, which is actually also a pretty cool proposition there. Now, of course, my tester here is the exclusive trim line. That's an extra $2,500. It has a couple of other options like the AMG body styling package, the upgraded leather on the inside. My tester with all those options comes into just over $91,000. That's still around $8,000 less expensive than the EQE 500, but still, this is over 90,000 bucks. It does make this car cheaper versus a BMW iX by about $10,000. However, the Audi Q8 e-tron is cheaper than this by about $5,000 to $10,000 still, depending on options. Now, this car is built and assembled in Alabama, so technically it could qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. You do have to squeak the MSRP in under $80,000, which means you have to buy a base Pinnacle trim or premium trim, and basically don't add any options to it other than a couple of small a la carte options like ventilated seats and a heated steering wheel. That'll squeak the price in under $80,000. And keep in mind, leasing this vehicle is going to qualify you for the tax credit, and I believe as of this filming in December 2023, the lease deals for this car, for this particular model here, started around $769 a month. That includes, or that's for 3 years for, I believe, 10,000 miles a year with around $7,300 due at signing. Now that lease payment is attractive, and it's really about twice the payment price of something like a mainstream EV from like Hyundai and Kia or Ford Mustang Mach-E or a Tesla Model Y. But again, remember, this is a Mercedes-Benz. It has some luxury and technology features, better ride quality, that's just going to elevate it even further. And some people really care about that Mercedes-Benz badge, but for me personally, I really am looking forward to driving the AMG version of this car. That's for around $110,000 to start, but I think Mercedes really needs to rethink the design of their EQ family and give us something that's more conventional looking. Basically looks like the gas version. That's exactly what BMW is doing, and I think Mercedes needs to also consider that, especially for their next generation of EV vehicles. Well, with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2024 Mercedes-Benz EQE 350 4Matic SUV. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.